Modern satellites are terrifyingly efficient. From hundreds of miles above the Earth, they can zoom in on a park bench in New York or track a single truck moving across the desolate Sahara. We have mapped the surface of Mars in high definition and peered into the deepest, darkest trenches of the Pacific Ocean. Yet, there is a gaping, 4,000-year-old hole in our global history that no lens, no radar, and no laser can seem to penetrate. Somewhere beneath the shifting dust of modern-day Iraq lies the absolute, undisputed center of the ancient known universe, the lost city of Akkad. It was the world's first hypercapital, a roaring, golden metropolis that invented the very concept of an empire. It was Rome before Rome was even a village. It was New York before the discovery of the Americas. But today, the world's leading archaeologists are hunting a ghost. They have scoured the deserts with ground-penetrating radar, utilized advanced thermal imaging, and analyzed every grain of sand from orbit. The result? Total silence. Akkad has vanished so thoroughly that it feels like it was intentionally deleted from the physical memory of the Earth. But in 2300 BC, Akkad was no myth. It was a deafening, hyper-wealthy supercapital sitting on the rushing banks of the Euphrates River. Before this exact moment in history, humanity was fractured, divided into dozens of independent, bickering, walled city-states that lived and died in their own small circles. But then, a single man, a brilliant, fiercely ambitious figure named Sargon, completely shattered that ancient system. He fused dozens of different cultures, languages, and gods into a single, terrifying new concept. He invented the superpower. Tonight, we are going to experience 24 hours at the absolute dawn of imperial majesty. We will walk the streets of a society that engineered the first standing army, standardized the global economy, and gave birth to the very first named author in human history. We are entering a digital resurrection of the most successful lost civilization to ever exist. This is the story of how humanity first learned to dream of universal power, and how that dream eventually turned into a haunting, invisible ruin. To understand the magnitude of Akkad, you first have to understand the man who willed it into existence out of the river mud. In the ancient world, power was supposed to be a closed loop. It was a gift from the gods, passed down through the pure bloodlines of kings who claimed to be semi-divine. You were born a king, or you were nothing. Then came Sargon. His origin story sounds like a fever dream, or perhaps the original blueprint for the story of Moses. Legend says his mother was a high priestess who gave birth in secret, placed her baby in a basket of rushes sealed with bitumen, and cast him into the Euphrates. He was found not by royalty, but by a simple gardener. By the time he reaches the city-state of Kish, Sargon is an outsider with no name and no pedigree. Yet he rises. He doesn't climb the social ladder, he hacks it. He becomes the royal cupbearer to King Ur-Zababa. In 2300 BC, this wasn't just a servant role, it was the most dangerous and trusted position in the kingdom. You were the final line of defense against the assassin's poison. You held the king's life in your hands every time he felt thirsty. But Sargon wasn't interested in protecting the old world. He was busy studying its weaknesses. While the elite of Kish were obsessed with their ancestral rituals, Sargon was looking at the logistics of power. He realized that the city-state system was broken. It was small, fragile, and selfish. He saw a world where a man's worth wasn't measured by his father's tomb, but by his own calculated competence. The rebellion wasn't just a military coup, it was a psychological earthquake. Sargon didn't just kill a king. He murdered the very idea that only nobles could lead. When he marched out of Kish to found his own capital, Akkad, he did something radical. He invited the outcasts, the talented, and the ambitious to join him. He created the world's first meritocracy. This was the birth of the new order. If you could fight, if you could calculate, if you could lead, Akkad had a place for you. But as Sargon's shadow began to stretch across Mesopotamia, the neighboring kings made a fatal mistake. They laughed at the cup-bearer. They didn't realize that the man who knew how to pour wine also knew exactly how to spill blood. Imagine stepping out of the scorched, empty silence of the Mesopotamian desert and walking directly into the sun. But this isn't just a star in the sky, it is a city that glows. In 2300 BC, Akkad was the tallest thing on the horizon for 1,000 miles. As you approach the massive outer gates, the first thing that hits you isn't the sight, but the smell. It's a thick, intoxicating cocktail of river silt, roasted barley, and the sharp, resinous scent of imported cedar wood burning in 1,000-degree kilns. The city is a masterpiece of mud, but don't let that fool you. These aren't crude huts. These are sprawling, multi-roomed courtyard estates built with the precision of a jeweler. Every wall is coated in smooth, cooling white plaster that reflects the brutal sun, making the entire metropolis shimmer like a mirage. As a sukalma, a high-ranking administrator in Sargon's court, you move through streets that feel like canyons. The architecture here is a language of dominance. To your left, the residential districts are a beehive of activity, with flat roofs where families sleep under the stars to escape the indoor heat. To your right, the monumental granaries rise up like fortresses, holding enough grain to feed an army for years. This is the world's first strategic reserve. But the true heart of Akkad is its verticality. In a world where most humans lived in structures no taller than a goat, the temples and palaces of Akkad reached for the heavens. They were built on massive raised platforms to protect them from the unpredictable flooding of the Euphrates, but also to remind everyone who looked up, the king is closer to the gods than you will ever be. Underneath your sandals, the ground is hard-packed and engineered. The Akkadians were among the first to understand urban drainage, carving narrow channels into the streets to whisk away the waste of 500,000 people. It was an urban jungle that functioned with the clockwork precision of a machine. You are standing in a place that shouldn't exist, a pinnacle of human engineering that defied the laws of nature. But as you look at these white walls, a chilling thought crosses your mind. How much fire would it take to turn all this baked mud back into dust? If the towering white walls of Akkad are its body, the Karam is its beating, blood-pumping heart. By 7 a.m., the silence of the desert is officially dead. It has been replaced by a deafening global symphony of commerce that would feel hauntingly familiar to any modern stock trader or logistics manager. You step onto the massive wooden piers of the Euphrates, and for a moment, the sheer scale of the operation stops your breath. This is not local trade. This is globalism 1.0. Sargon famously boasted that he forced the ships of the entire world to tie up at his docks, and looking at the horizon, you realize he wasn't exaggerating. To your left, heavy-bottomed merchant vessels from Dilmun, modern-day Bahrain, are unloading mountains of raw copper, still smelling of the earth. To your right, ships from Magan, known today as Oman, are winching massive blocks of black diorite stone onto the docks. This stone is so hard, so prestigious, that it will be used only for the statues of the king himself. But then you see them, the great ships of Meluha. These merchants have traveled thousands of miles across the open, terrifying ocean from the Indus Valley in modern-day Pakistan. In 2300 BC, this was the equivalent of a mission to Mars. They bring things the people of Mesopotamia have never seen before. Brightly colored tropical birds that scream in foreign tongues, heavy tusks of elephant ivory, and carnelian beads etched with brilliant white acid. As a Sukalma, you watch the royal scribes moving like ghosts through the chaos. They aren't just observing, they are measuring. They press their reeds into wet clay tablets, recording every ounce of copper and every bead of gold. This is the world's first intercontinental tax system. You realize that in this moment, Akkad has become the gravitational center of the planet. Money, power, and culture are colliding here with such force that it's changing the DNA of humanity. But there's a problem. How do you keep track of all this wealth when every city-state has a different idea of what a pound or a bushel is? How do you prevent the entire system from collapsing into a logistical nightmare? To find out, we have to leave the sun-drenched docks and enter the quiet, terrifyingly efficient world of the tablet house. Leaving the humid, roaring chaos of the docks, you enter the cool, dim hallways of the Enheduanna, the House of Tablets. The air here is still, smelling of damp earth and the sharp scent of reed styluses. This is the world's first Pentagon mixed with a Federal Reserve. Before Sargon, Mesopotamia was a logistical disaster. It was a Tower of Babel in real time. Every city-state was a tiny, stubborn island of ego. If you bought grain in Nippur using their local bushel, by the time you sailed to Ur, your measurements meant nothing. Trade was based on suspicion and constant haggling. It was impossible to scale. Sargon realized a truth that every modern CEO knows. You don't build a monopoly just with force. You build it with standards. He officially mandated that his native tongue, Akkadian, be used for all imperial administration. Suddenly, the language of the outsider became the language of power, law, and wealth. But his true masterstroke was the introduction of the royal gur and the royal mina. He standardized weights and measures across thousands of miles. For the first time in human history, a merchant in the north and a farmer in the south were playing by the exact same economic rules. This wasn't just convenient, it was revolutionary. It created the world's first unified market. You look down at your wrist, where a small blue cylinder of pure lapis lazuli hangs on a leather cord. This is your cylinder seal. In a world 4,000 years before digital encryption or handwritten signatures, this was the ultimate security tool. As a Sukalma, you roll this stone across a wet clay ledger, leaving a raised, continuous image of gods and heroes that is virtually impossible to forge without the physical stone. By pressing that seal into the clay, you aren't just signing a document. You are binding the edges of the known world together. You are turning chaos into a system. You are ensuring that every drop of sweat in the fields and every ounce of copper on the docks is accounted for by the central state. Standardization was the invisible glue of the Akkadian Empire. But, as any historian will tell you, a system is only as strong as the men willing to kill to protect it. And to see the teeth of this empire, we have to look at the 5,400 men who eat bread every day in the shadow of the king. By 1 p.m., the Mesopotamian sun has become a physical, crushing weight beating down on the flat roofs of the city. But as you approach the absolute heart of the empire, the royal palace of Sargon, you hear a sound that drowns out the heat. It is the rhythmic, earth-shaking thud of thousands of sandals hitting the dust in perfect, terrifying unison. You are witnessing the secret of the empire's survival. It isn't just gold, it's the fist. In the vast shaded porticos of the palace, 5,400 men are sitting down to eat their midday rations. Sargon's royal inscriptions proudly boast that these 5,400 men eat bread daily before him. To a modern viewer, this might sound like a simple payroll. To the ancient world, it was a declaration of total war. Before this moment, kings relied on seasonal peasant militias. Farmers would pick up a spear after the harvest, fight for a few weeks, and then hurry home before the crops rotted. If a war lasted too long, the kingdom starved. Sargon destroyed that cycle. These 5,400 men do not farm, they do not herd, they do one thing, and they do it better than anyone else on the planet. They train to kill. This is the first permanent professional standing army in recorded human history. They are fed, clothed, and armed entirely by the state, 365 days a year. As you walk past the armories, you see the devastating innovations of the Akkadian military machine. These men do not fight in disorganized mobs. They are disciplined, heavy infantry, wielding bronze-tipped thrusting spears and carrying massive rectangular shields that lock together into an impenetrable wall of metal. But the true terror of Akkad is its long game. Look at the weapons held by the elite units, the composite bow. This wasn't just a piece of bent wood. It was a high-tech marvel of its age, crafted from laminated layers of wood, animal horn, and sinew. It could fire arrows with armor-piercing force at distances their enemies couldn't even dream of reaching. You watch the commanders drill their units, a sea of bronze helmets gleaming in the sun. This iron fist is what keeps the rebellious city-states of the South perfectly, quietly in line. It is a message written in bronze. If you defy the king, we don't have to wait for the harvest to end. We are coming for you now. Yet, as any conqueror knows, an empire held together only by spears will eventually bleed out. To truly win, you don't just need to control men's bodies, you need to own their souls. And for that, we must leave the training grounds and meet the most powerful woman in the ancient world. By 3 p.m., the heat of the day has reached a fever pitch, but you are summoned to a place where the air is unnaturally cool, the private, beautifully manicured inner gardens of the palace. You are not here to meet a general or a tax collector. You are meeting the most dangerous intellectual in the ancient world. Her name is Enheduanna. She is the daughter of Sargon, but her power doesn't come from her father's army. It comes from her mind. Sargon was a genius of geography, but Enheduanna was a genius of the human soul. She understood a truth that many modern dictators often forget. You can conquer a city with bronze spears, but you cannot hold it unless you occupy the hearts of the people. The southern Sumerians, with their ancient traditions and proud gods, loathed being ruled by a northern upstart like Sargon. They were a powder keg of rebellion. To solve this, Sargon appointed Enheduanna as the high priestess of the moon god, Nana, in the city of Ur. But she wasn't just a figurehead. She became the world's first propaganda minister. As you sit with her under the shade of a date palm, she reads aloud from a freshly baked clay tablet. Her voice is steady, but the words are explosive. She is performing a feat of theological engineering. She is deliberately fusing the pantheons of the North and South, equating the Sumerian goddess Inanna with the Akkadian Ishtar. Through her poetry, she is telling the people that their gods are actually one and the same, and that this one god has chosen Sargon to rule. But Enheduanna did something even more radical, something that would change human culture forever. In a world where all writing was anonymous, she did the unthinkable. She signed her name. The compiler of the tablets was Enheduanna, she wrote. "My king, something has been created that no one has created before." She invented the very concept of individual authorship. She was the first person in the history of the world to say, "I am the creator of these thoughts." By attaching her identity to her work, she gave the empire a voice, a face, and a soul. She turned the Akkadian ideology into an immortal brand. While the 5,400 men of the standing army held the walls, Enheduanna's hymns held the empire's mind. She was the invisible architect of the Akkadian identity. But even the most brilliant propaganda cannot stop the clock. As the sun begins to dip towards the horizon, we must transition from the garden of the mind to the gritty reality of the men who actually run this machine. To understand how this massive machine stays on the tracks, you have to look past the gold and the spears. You have to look at the mud. By 5 p.m., the administrative halls of the palace are thick with the smell of wet earth. As a Sukalma, the Grand Vizier and second most powerful man in the world, your day isn't spent in glorious battle, but in a relentless, exhausting war of information. Before you sit rows of highly trained scribes, their hands stained dark with the clay they have been molding since dawn. Each tablet they produce represents a heartbeat of the empire. One records 40 bushels of barley taxed from a rebellious farmer in Lagash. Another tracks the precise weight of silver sent to pay the standing army. In Akkad, data is as valuable as blood. You are the world's first true executive bureaucrat. You manage the world's first imperial postal service, ensuring that the king's orders reach the Mediterranean Sea in a matter of days, not weeks. Every decision you make carries the weight of millions. If the grain flow stutters, the 5,400 men starve. If the taxes are too high, the southern cities burn. You press your lapis lazuli cylinder seal into a final, heavy tablet, authorizing a shipment of cedar wood for the king's new monument. Your wrist aches from the weight of your authority. In this room, the empire isn't a colorful map, it's a cold, hard ledger. You realize that Sargon didn't just conquer the world with bronze, he conquered it with logistics. But as the shadows of the palace grow long, you can feel the strain on the system. The ledger must balance, or the dream of Akkad will end in a sea of red. By 7 p.m., the suffocating desert heat finally breaks, giving way to a feast that defines the very meaning of imperial excess. You enter the grand reception hall, where the audacity of Akkadian wealth is a sensory masterpiece. Massive bronze braziers burn fragrant cedar wood imported from the mountains of Lebanon, illuminating walls decorated with intricate mosaics of lapis lazuli. You sit with elite scribes and visiting diplomats, served platters of roasted gazelle and mounds of sticky, honeyed dates. But the centerpiece of the banquet is the beer, thick, nutritious, and shared through long, incredibly expensive drinking tubes made of pure gold. Sargon the Great sits at the head of the hall, a man who has genuinely conquered the four corners of the universe. The laughter is loud, and the confidence is absolute. To the elite gathered here, Akkad feels invincible, an eternal machine of prosperity that can never break. They believe they have mastered history itself. They are laughing and trading stories of distant lands, completely unaware that the shadow of collapse is already moving across the horizon. Tonight, they are gods. Tomorrow, they will be ghosts. Tonight, the walls stand. But the Akkadian shadow will fade into dust, wiped away by drought and invaders. Though the city vanished, its blueprint survived, infecting every single empire that followed. Akkad died, but the dream of universal power became eternal. We are still living in the world that Sargon built,